similar story. And all these ancient civilizations talk about beings, not just beings who came here from other planets, people that look like us and we look like them. In other words, not identical, but very similar. In other words, a bilateral, bipedal hominid of some type that can maneuver around, that has appendages that can manipulate the environment. Because without that, you can't move out into space and other places. And they also talk about multidimensional. You get into like the non-commodity and stuff like that. You're talking about multidimensional beings. And so in physics, in quantum physics in particular, they started theorizing on these dimensions and were able to even analyze and discover some that they actually do exist. And on top of that, they realized that the dimensions are packed so tight on top of one another that if you can phase shift your atomic structure, your subatomic frequency, you can walk right into another dimension. And so they started postulating, what if beings from higher dimensions are some of these apparitions and these paranormal phenomena that we're seeing? Are they able to maybe take a glimpse or a peek? Are they phasing through into our universe? And so from higher dimensions. And so they started really theorizing it. It seems to be, and based on my research, that there's people living everywhere. Not just, and I'm not talking about little green men with antenna. I think that there's people living all throughout this universe in the third dimension. And I think there's people living all throughout even higher multiple dimensions, maybe at a certain level, a certain height in those dimensions. Maybe they don't have a real corporeal body.
Right. Non-physical.
Non-physical, you know what I'm saying? But I believe that the consciousness is there.
Then that part is interesting, the non-physical aspect, because I understand that and I can believe in that idea and that concept. It's like what people think, I think of angels as angles.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because, you know, angels are supposed to exist in between dimensions.
Yeah.
You understand me? And angles, you understand me, are dimensions.
That's right.
And so it's like perspective is your angle in which you see things and view things. And oftentimes angels come and gives us new perspective, new thoughts. You understand me?
Yeah.
Arriving from a different, completely dimension of thought that we couldn't arrive at ourselves.
Correct.
You know, but at the same time, when you're talking about non-corporeal bodies or non-physical bodies, you understand me? I like that concept because when you're talking about time, you're talking about light, you're talking about all of these different ways in which light or energy can exist within and consciousness. Right? The awareness of, you know, output. You understand? Mathematical output. Right? Do you believe that the universe is mathematical?
Oh, absolutely. The language of God is mathematics, because mathematics can literally explain everything that we experience and everything also that exists. Even the fact that we're existing in a light matrix can be proven through mathematics. So we're living in a matrix that's basically written on mathematics called Adinkra codes. And these Adinkra codes go all the way back to the Dogons, the Dogon tribes out of Mali, Africa.
Yeah.
They actually originated these codes, and they were given these codes by the Nomo, and they learned them. They drew them out as art forms. But now, and they put them on clothing and blankets and everything else.
So the Dogon tribe, very interesting tribe, you know, that was able to discover systems before telescopes and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So how did they arrive to be able to, because I know a lot of people, I posted about this not too long ago, people want to understand how the hell did the Dogon tribe arrive to it, right? I just subscribe to, us being, gods, melanated beings on this planet Earth. We connected in a way that we just don't understand anymore. You understand me? And being multidimensional, I think about physics in that aspect where you're talking about things being entangled. Not Will and Jada entanglements, you understand me? But quantum entanglements.
Right.
And once you understand that, being multidimensional to me is easily understood from the fact that you can break us down to atoms, right? And then cells, and then we get into our skin and we see our physical. But from an atomic level, those are different laws, right? And we're made up of atoms. So that an aspect of our existence is obeying different laws of the universe. And then our cells are obeying different laws of gravity and magnetism, right, and flow. But then we as human beings are obeying different laws, right, of gravity and magnetism in the universe. And then we forget about the universal laws of our multidimensional self because we only know man's law.
Exactly.
You understand me? So I think being multidimensional is easily understood as above, so below. You understand me? But the idea of the Dogon people being able to chart systems, how were they able to figure that out? You understand me? Before the Europeans had an idea of what was out there.
Right. Well, to be honest with you, if you go all the way back to the ancient Dogon history, before they got to Mali, they were in the land of Kem. They were the original inhabitants of the land of Kem before it was called Egypt. And so...
Kem meaning the land of blacks?
The land of blacks, correct. Exactly, land of blacks. Kem was black, it's all black. That's in the tablets.
So Kem, there's so much Jews in here, but so in Kem, you understand me, that's Africa.
Yeah.
Right? I know everybody call the Middle East as if...
it's Africa, man.
The Middle East is the most funniest made up concept, magical idea on the planet.
I know.
Because it's like, you have in Africa, but no, this is like the Middle East Africa. It doesn't count for Sub-Saharan Africa, Northern Africa, and East Africa. But it's Africa, right?
It's Africa.
Yeah, so... for those who don't
Cairo
know,
is in Africa.
Cairo's in Africa.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I know, people still get it wrong till this day.
That's crazy.
It surprises me. But so they, according to their records and their handed down verbal history, their records are etched into caves and stuff like that. The Nomo came here from Sirius B. Okay, so there's a trinary star system that we know of called Sirius, the Sirius star system, A, B, and C. B is a failed star. In other words, it ran out of fuel, turned into a white dwarf. These beings were orbiting on a planet that orbited that star, according to the Dogon, not me. Came here, they're called the Nomo. The Dogon called them the Nomo. Taught them all about the star system, the orbital pattern, our entire solar system, the names, the shapes, the sizes, the colors of all the planets in our solar system, all the planetary alignments. And they even knew that that white dwarf star was so gravitationally heavy that one spoonful couldn't be lifted by over 1 million men. They even knew that. We learned that in quantum mechanics and quantum physics in the 1970s, 1980s. We hypothesized it. And obviously we couldn't even see that star until the 1980s, 1970s, I'm sorry.
So when did they record it?
Thousands of years ago.
Thousands of years ago.
It's like, we're talking about over 6,000, 7,000 years. They've had depictions of them and everything else, and they taught them how to make these Dogon masks, but they also gave them the Adinkra codes. Now these Adinkra codes look like designs on clothing and patterns. When you turn these designs into three-dimensional structures, they become something called error correcting codes. And Professor James S. Gates, a black professor who used to be the science advisor for Obama when he was in office, he's now the professor, I believe, at the University of Maryland in supersymmetry and theoretical physics. He discovered these he rediscovered them, obviously, and he turned them into three-dimensional objects, and then from there he found the error correcting codes. He was analyzing and accessing information about the ether of space-time, and he discovered that the entire ether, in other words, everything this soup that we're operating in throughout the entire universe, is running on a specific code. It's called an Adinkra code. It's called error correcting codes. The same exact kind of codes that run search engines and web browsers. Wow. That's what's running the universe.
So listen now. At certain points in time in the interview, the glasses got to come off. This was one of those points in time when we're talking about Adinkra codes and going into multidimensional aspects of thinking. You know, the total square mileage of the water, earth, land, mountains, rivers, lakes, right? Everything. So, you know, deep into the teachings of Elijah Muhammad is astronomy, right? He wasn't really into astrology because he said it was too much guesswork. But astronomy he was into because it was mathematical. And you're talking about, you know, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, for a black man to be teaching astronomy, especially the poor black people in America. It was, it was
light years ahead of his time.
It was an interesting indication of, you know, where he got his knowledge. Because he had a third grade education, but he was teaching about astronomy. Right? And he would dare the scholars of the world to prove him wrong. Of course, none of them did, right? Because he was talking about Pluto back in those days before they would recognize Pluto, right? And I used to always think about why. And one of the last books that he wrote was called The Theology of Time.
Wow.
And The Theology of Time it's not a book for the beginner, initiate. You understand me? It's definitely more novice when you get into your understanding. And then that's when he proposed and he talked about alien life on Mars. Right? He talked about the different planets who can and who can't go there, what they were doing and building. Like he has very detailed composition of thought on extraterrestrial life. You understand me? And the origins of the planet itself and the universe itself. You know, and it's very interesting because we often believe that our connection to, you know, the way that the Dogons were able to chart the stars is lost. Right? You know, but that knowledge has always been within our DNA and always been passed down within us. There's just certain keepers of that knowledge. Right? And those keepers of the knowledge are not often listened to because, especially today, we in a very static, distracted, low-level way of thinking. So it's like you have to think about the mind, and it's not even to say that they were the most intelligent people on the planet, but connected. You understand me? As being different. Like that's a different type of intelligence. Because we only measure academia or scholarship intelligence that you get from universities. But we don't measure the intelligence you get from the universe. You understand me? I want to talk about, you know, I don't want to leave time in the star system just yet, but I do want to talk about your relationship with astronomy and whether you believe astrology to be a true science or not.
Well, I'm actually an amateur astronomer.
Okay.
I've been doing that for a long time.
Yes, sir.
I have a real nice telescope. I have a Celestron SLR. And it's a real nice telescope. You can actually see the rings of Saturn. You can see Jupiter. You can see Mars.
Yeah.
I took a famous picture that's been circulating for years of Mars during the summer. When you take a picture of Mars during the summer, it actually has green, it has blues. It's not a red planet. You can see that the ice caps are smaller, which means they've melted. There's a lot of liquid water on the planet. And a lot of those greens, I believe, is vegetation. You know, and now all the science data is coming back out from NASA. Now all of a sudden press releases are coming out. The soil on Mars is better for growing crops than on Earth. Now they're saying this, oh, there's billions of tons of liquid water on Mars now.
Yeah. I can believe that.
And they're also talking about the fact that there's an atmosphere that is equivalent to being like 18,000 feet above sea level, but that's like going to Peru. I'm going to Peru in a few weeks, right? So same thing. You got to acclimate to that height, to that low oxygen, but you can still breathe as long as you stay close to the ground. Once you go higher up, it's going to be very dangerous. But if you're within like 10 feet of the ground, you can actually breathe. You just need to acclimate. So all of a sudden, all this is coming out because why? They're getting ready to, you know, to build an infrastructure up there, in my opinion, and do a breakaway civilization. That's what the whole Elon Musk and all that's on Mars is all about. So I got really into it. Now, one of the reasons why I built the underground shelter that you mentioned, called Fort Terra Nova, that was back in 2012. Was because I was analyzing the precession of the equinoxes, the movement of the stars across the sky, the constellations across the sky. I noticed that they were speeding up. Based on my calculations, it was moving, instead of 27,000 years for one cycle, it was actually averaging around 25,000. I'm like, are the books wrong? Are these great astronomers wrong, or what's going on? And the more I dug into it, the more I looked into it, I realized the only thing that can explain this is if our sun is orbiting something. It would need breakaway speed, and it would, you know, it would speed up and it would slow down, speed up and slow down. So I started digging into that. I found out that they had something they were calling nemesis out there, something that they couldn't exactly say what it was, but they were saying there was a huge object out there orbiting our sun, and our sun was orbiting it. And they found it about 3 or 4 years ago. They labeled it Planet 9, but really is a brown dwarf star. They found a brown dwarf orbiting our sun. So we live in a binary solar system. We don't have one sun, we actually have two. One's a brown dwarf, which you can only see with 2-mass infrared mode on your telescope. You have to have a digital scope to see that because it's so dim, you can't see with the naked eye.
Is the sun black or white?
The sun is white. It's bright white, so it's not black actually. If you actually were able to go out and look at the sun above the atmosphere, you'll find out that it's actually bright white light. When it hits our atmosphere, it scatters, and when the light breaks down, we see more of the yellows because the blues are kept up there. So the sun actually is bright white.
Well, I saw them say that the sun is black, but it's the charge of light that gives it the appearance of white.
Well, it's a nuclear explosion. Now, what's interesting about the sun is that a lot of the light doesn't even get to the surface for like 100, 200,000 years. So It could be both, a little bit of both. It could be that it is a dark sun, but the light is what we can see. For example, the sun is 8 light minutes away from Earth. So if the sun went dark right now, we'd have daylight for 8 minutes. Now the light,
And that's 90 million miles away.
90 million miles away, right? And the light that's formed on the inside from the collision of the atoms on the inside, the nuclei, when they're colliding and splitting, that light doesn't go straight from the center core right out to the outside of the sun. It actually meanders through the inside of the sun for thousands and thousands of years before it releases itself and leaves the corona. Then it takes 8 minutes to get to Earth. So the light that we're experiencing right now is hundreds of thousands of years old before it even got to us. You know what I'm saying? Before it left our sun.
So light is very interesting. You understand me? I want to talk about light and water for a second.